All right, let's dive into something that's probably in your house right now, but has a story that stretches all the way across the globe. We're going to pull back the curtain on sustainability reporting by focusing on one single, super common ingredient: palm oil. I mean, really think about it. The soap you use, the cosmetics on your shelf, even some cleaning supplies, they all have these incredibly complex supply chains. How are you, or anyone for that matter, supposed to know what's really going on behind the label? Well, the good news is we don't have to just guess anymore. There's actually a rule book for this stuff. They're called the SASB standards, and they give companies a clear, consistent way to report on sustainability issues. And not just any issues, but the ones that can actually impact their bottom line. Okay, let's get into it. Look, these standards are a total game changer because they cut through all the noise. We're moving past the vague, fuzzy green promises. Instead, they demand real, specific data that you can actually compare from one company to the next. This lets investors, and eventually people like us, see what's truly happening. So what exactly is SASB? The easiest way to think about it is like a common language for sustainability. It creates specific standards for 77 different industries. So a software company isn't reporting on the same things as a big automaker, right? That would be pointless. It's tailored, it's specific, and it's all focused on what is financially material. So for this explainer, we're going to zoom way in on just one of those industries: household and personal products. Yep, this is the one that makes pretty much everything from your shampoo and laundry detergent to your makeup and paper towels. Now, for this specific industry, SASB zeroes in on four key topics. You've got water management, the life cycle of all that packaging, the chemicals that are in the products, and the one we're going to park on today: the huge environmental and social impacts of the palm oil supply chain. So why all the focus on palm oil? Well, it is the perfect case study. It shows how one little ingredient can create these massive global ripple effects that companies and their investors absolutely need to get a handle on. And it's everywhere for a reason. Palm oil is just incredibly versatile and super efficient to grow, which makes it a cheap and really popular ingredient for literally thousands of products. It gives things the texture and the long shelf life that we've all come to expect. But, and this is a huge but, there's a dark side. When it's not sourced responsibly, the fallout is severe. We're talking massive deforestation, which destroys critical habitats and pumps tons of carbon into the atmosphere. For companies, this can mean supply chain nightmares, a PR disaster, and it's often tied to really serious labor issues. These aren't just ethical problems, these are major financial risks. And this is exactly where the standard steps in. It doesn't just say, hey, be more responsible. No, it gives companies a very specific framework to report on exactly how they're sourcing their palm oil. This creates the clarity we need to see who's just talking and who's actually walking the walk. To do that, the standard relies on a key organization called the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, or RSPO. Think of them as the main referee in this whole space. They're a global group that sets the bar for what sustainable palm oil actually means. SASB then uses their framework for its reporting metrics. So how does this actually work in practice? Well, step one is just radical transparency. The standard says, first, just tell us the total volume of palm oil you source in metric tons. It sounds simple, but it's such a powerful number. After all, you can't manage what you don't measure. Exactly. That's the million-dollar question, right? Knowing the total amount is just the starting line. The really important question is how much of that massive number is actually certified as sustainable? And, just as important, how is it certified? And that brings us to these 4 different ways to certify, which are really about traceability. Let's just walk through them, from best to, well, less traceable. First up, you have identity preserved. This is the gold standard. The oil is completely separate and you can trace it back to a single specific certified plantation. One step down is segregated. Here, certified oil from a bunch of different certified places gets mixed together, but it's always kept separate from the non-certified stuff. Then we get to mass balance. This is where certified and non-certified oil get mixed in the supply chain, but the volumes are tracked with paperwork to make sure the books balance. And finally, there's book and claim. This is basically where a company uses non-certified oil but buys credits from certified growers to offset that use. Understanding this breakdown is absolutely crucial to figuring out what a company is really doing. So, after all that, why do these technical little details matter so much? Because they draw a straight line from the decisions made in a corporate boardroom all the way to the environmental impact of the products sitting in your bathroom cabinet. This really just says it all. Without these standards, what do we have? We have vague green claims and all these risks hiding in the shadows. But with a standard like SASB, suddenly we get clear, comparable numbers. We go from investor uncertainty to real data for decision-making. We go from limited accountability to actual transparency. So who wins in the end? Well, pretty much everyone who wants a more sustainable market. Investors can finally see and actually price the risks that are buried in a company's supply chain. Companies get a clear roadmap to manage those risks and build a stronger business. And for us, the consumers, we start to get a much clearer picture of what's really behind the brands we choose to support. And that brings us to our last question for you to chew on. This kind of detailed reporting, it's a huge leap forward for transparency, no doubt. But is transparency the end goal itself? Or is it just the essential first step that lets us all start doing the real work of building a truly sustainable economy? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.